Welcome, dear viewers. So this is my third design that I'm doing, and so this is an interesting one to begin with. And as I've mentioned in an earlier episode, none of these characters ever really have names. They're more of roles. So this is the lawyer. So as you can see, he's a little bit more of a statuesque figure, almost superhero-ish, and so he's definitely the strongest one, but this is where it's interesting. So in the beginning of the plot, he's in a wheelchair, and then later on, in order to work for a case, he has to get robotic legs. Basically, he basically works for the villain, and one of the ways that the villain is just an utter jerk is that his facilities are not wheelchair accessible, so the lawyer literally has to buy robot legs out of his own money, and so yeah, so I want to give him a hat. Almost every character has a hat. I feel like they have to in a western. I mean, I guess like if you have a barber or something, then not necessarily, but almost everyone has a hat, and so I gave him a little fedora trilby or whatever, but with a pretty wide brim. So I didn't want him to look like a carny. Was, I guess, the biggest thing with the hat, but then I decided to just go with it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the outfit. I kind of gave it an almost like more militaristic form, but then decided to make it look more like a normal suit. And so his proportions are distinctly bigger than the Traveler. The Traveler is very thin when he's untransformed, and so I'll definitely change that up when I go into more detail. This is more just getting the style, the basic style of clothing, and all the little details that I wanted to. But yeah, I was just getting it down, so I made it look like a normal suit, but I wanted it to have a little bit more character than your average modern suit, and so I gave it some ruffles, and I think I might actually dramatize it a little bit more, because I mentioned the carny problem earlier, and another problem is the vampire problem. Where I don't want him to look like a vampire, but maybe that'll be fine. Maybe I should just get over my insecurities and draw what I want to. And so, as I've mentioned, when he's in the wheelchair, it's more like I'm imagining more like a robe or a skirt for the legs, or maybe he just has a large overcoat. But I drew him with kind of generic suit pants for the moment, but I might just let him have the robot legs. Maybe the coat just hangs down, and I'll test out a couple more things. I guess the part of the preliminary design a little bit was supposed to be to sketch out a couple more ideas, but I think the most important part is to get down everything as at least a first draft, so I can say that instead of being a rough starting point, I'm officially labeling this draft 1, where it can be overdrafted, which the specifications of which don't matter at all, probably to anyone but me, but I just like to organize my things mentally in a certain way. So with the robotics, so my first disclaimer is I'm never really great at drawing machines. I don't know what it is, but I have a much better and easier time drawing organic things, and that's how I like to do it. So I was thinking I could make it a very, very realistic looking, kind of like cyborg-esque materials, because one thing is that he's working for like the richest man in the world, kind of a little bit poking fun of the cyberpunk trope with like this super corporation, but then also being a prime example of that, where basically one man owns like all the money in this world, and in this terrible resource scarcity, dying world. And so I could make it look like super futuristic, and there are points where I contrast kind of the technology that the normal people are scrounging for versus what the villain, who's called the Baron, just has available to him. But the lawyer is paying for this out of pocket, so I wanted to get this more of like kind of a blocky, kind of almost cartoonish, where maybe you can imagine the limbs functioning, but I didn't worry too much about the mechanics of it, because I made them very blocky. So I had this weird art transition where when I was a kid I loved just overly detailed things. Like there's a very early drawing that I did maybe in 3rd or 4th grade with just this ridiculous looking dragon with like wings and rings around the wings and all these horns, like all this kind of stuff. And I do like doing some stuff like that to some extent, but then I almost had a counter art movement to myself where I started really enjoying a simple design as it could be. And one of my outlets for that is I drew a lot of Kirby, and I didn't really I didn't really make stories for him. It's just like doodling him was really fun, and he's shaped like a friend, and so I kind of like the, it's not, I mean, it is kind of an 80s robot aesthetic, but almost like it could be seen as a little bit older than that too, with the very blocky robot shapes. But yeah, so I kind of like the idea of more of the robot leg showing, so I think I'll pull down, and I gave them like a basic facial hair to start out with, because with a lot of modern things, I feel like facial hair like very much distinguishes a time period. Like if you're going for the 50s, you mostly want clean shaven. If you're going for modern, kind of the same thing, or you can have very specific groomed kind of beards. But I kind of want to tap a little bit more into the older style. So maybe it could be a 19th century kind of lawyer look, while also being in the future, kind of contributing to this weird anachronism. So yeah, as I mentioned, I was designing his wheelchair, and I was going to do a bare bones, but then I designed it after my own kind of quote unquote gaming chair that I got for Christmas and I use at my desk, and then just added the necessary attachments to make it a wheelchair. But yeah, so it's only used in a couple scenes in the beginning, but I still want it to look good as a prop or a set piece. And so I think I would make him wear pants with prosthetic legs while he's in the wheelchair, and then maybe he puts on a slightly altered coat that droops down with more of the robot legs showing, because I like how the legs look in future. I don't know. I can elaborate on this in future videos. But this is a basic look at my character as the first design for him. Thank you to my patron, the Abyss Acolyte, Dr. Von Kitai, for continuing to support me. And thank you for continuing on with me on this comic creation journey. It might seem a little weird. I don't know if there's similar content out there. And I'd say this was I foresee seeing the most changes to this design. And there'll definitely be later. These first ones are meant to be very rough, and I'm definitely going to come back to them. But I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Consider becoming a patron if you want to, or subscribing, or yada yada yada, all that stuff. I appreciate the support, but obviously I can't force you to do anything. And until next time.